guys, this is me, Malorian, and this is actually a Paintisode. Can you believe it? Basically, things have been really busy lately, so I haven't been doing a lot of content, you know, between work being busy, summer holidays, so the kids are up super late, and then wanting to spend time with them before they left on their big trip to Ontario, and they left this morning. So I got lots of free time. Normally I'd be trying to, you know, play with my kids before bed, and then try and do something with the wife before bed, and now it's kind of like, I get to kind of do my own thing. Now, I don't want you to look at this and say like, oh wow, Malorian's doing Paintisodes again, because I still don't think in the long run Paintisodes will be a thing on this channel. For those who this is your first time, basically I'm going to sit around here for about an hour and I'm going to be painting something. The idea is that you grab something and either paint it or do some hobby stuff. Maybe if you have some gluing to do or want to listen to me cough. If you have any, you know, anything that you want to do that you want a little buzz in your ear while you do it, this is what it's kind of good for. I did find that in the long range, damn it, what is this guy doing over here? I gotta remember to paint this guy. He's like at the back of my paintable here. It's just Damiano. Gotta do him sometime. Anyway, I found that because I'm doing this for an hour and I'm kind of talking about lots of War Machine stuff, I would just kind of kill my Orc Tactical teams, because anything that I thought was a hot topic for that, I'd be talking in my Paintisodes, and so I found I could only really do one or the other. And so I just kind of stopped doing my Paintisodes, between them taking more time and you know, them just kind of like killing off all the topics. But you know, I got time right now, and I thought if I can keep this more so to like the hobby side of what I'm doing, the tournaments that I'm doing, and not so much like tactics. I'm going to try and do that, and we'll see if that kind of makes sense. Anyway, what I'm going to be painting today is my driller. I have never found a spot yet to use this guy, and so I kind of picked him up just so I'd actually have one, and then, you know, put them together and primed them. I did the first color already, so hooray! Color. But yeah, I just, you know, it seems that whenever I make a list, either I want to make a list with like 5 drillers or 6, and I don't really want to buy that many, or I just want to be using a bunch of the gun bunnies or an earthbreaker. And so unfortunately the little guy here doesn't see much action, and maybe sometime I should force him in just to kind of like see how it goes. I do have to say though that part of the reason why I don't like painting this model is because I don't like the model. For those who have not had to deal with this, it's your usual type thing where there's like the main model for, or part of the model piece here for the back. You have like the legs that go at the bottom, there's the arms, these arms have weird shoulder pads, whatever, that's not a big deal. But the thing is the way that the chest goes. Now, sometimes, especially with beasts, you'll have things where there's a cavity inside and then it encases it, and you just never know. This is horrible. And I mean, like, the head kind of goes in, and then there's a big chest plate that goes on the front there, and it's going to be hard for me to show this on camera, but there is a massive cavity in there, if you can see the light going through, and it's not hidden at all. And yeah, it is just pretty awful. And I'm sure it's one of these things, again, that if you're looking at it from the front, you know, if you're my opponent, you're never going to know it's there. If you're not a Rulic player who's put together one of these drillers, you won't be looking for it. So I'm sure even if you looked at it from the side, you wouldn't notice unless you're directly looking for it. But whenever I grab this model, because it's been here in my painting area for a while, and it's like, yeah, let's do the driller, I'll pick it up, I'll look at that gap, and just be like, no, I'm done. So I'm going to try. I'm going to see how much of this I can get done. Usually I try and get done one thing during the Paintisode, and I don't know. This guy depends what I do. Like, this jack actually can be very simple. The Rulic jacks don't really have a lot of crazy detail on them, so it can actually go fairly fast. So I'm going to start here. We're just doing the red for the eyes. That's always the easy spot to start with. And again, this is probably going to be a complete waste because this tiny little slot is going to be super hard to see. Yay, I have eyes. I'm realizing too, as I look around here, and by the way, I'm drinking Corona, if anybody cares. Man, I got all these cards around here, and I gotta say, I am 100% off of cards now. I used to be a guy that was like, you know what? War Room's fine, but the cards, they're dependable forever, right? And I think the straw that broke the camel's back on that one was when Privateer Press pretty much just said, you know what, we're not going to do cards anymore. We're going to update the cards as they happen, and you can print them off for yourself, but in the future, we're not even going to put cards in the boxes anymore. And so between me being lazy and not wanting to update my cards as new erratas come out, and having to know that in the future at some point I'll buy a brand new model and there just won't be a card in there for it, I kind of forced myself just to start getting used to War Room. And in the beginning I just did it for when I did games with my son, and then, you know, this super low pressure, who cares. And now whenever I have gaming at my place here, I always use it as well, and it's no problem. It's super duper easy, and I haven't used it at a tournament yet, but I don't foresee any issues. You know, clearly if I'm playing more games, there'll be more of a strain on the battery, and it's not really the newest of tablets. You know, I'm still a guy who has a BlackBerry. I'm not really on top of this technology stuff, but I really don't foresee me having any issues, because whenever I play a game, it probably uses up like 10 to 15%, and so if you times that by like a 4-game tournament, I'm going to be just fine. So, you know, it just makes it a lot easier. Probably the only time that I kind of miss having the cards down is that it made it a lot more apparent for what systems are out on jacks, especially when I have several of the same type, because it turns out I'm a guy who spams things. But yeah, you know, as I get a little bit more competitive sometimes, I'm more of the thing where I don't want my opponents to know when systems go out. Of course I tell them, right? If I'm playing a game and you knock out my movement, I'll say, you knocked out my movement. But I'm not really doing it so much, where before I'd have a card right by the model and they could see very clearly what's out. I do have the tokens from Crippled System, and depending on the game, sometimes I still use those. I don't always mark them in, because the way those tokens work is they have a box for everything that's possibly on a jack, even if you don't actually have it, like an arc node or field or something like that. But sometimes I mark those in just to make it a little bit easier. So there you go. He's legally painted. I got 3 colors on there. Got the red eyes, the black, and now I gotta figure out how I want to do this for the silver. Now, for Merc Jacks, I always use the, what is this one called? Lead Belcher, the darker of the silvers. And, you know, whereas like the Signar ones, I start with a brighter silver because they're fancy and rich, and then only use this for like where there'd be the crappy metal. For these guys here, you know, I kind of put it here, I don't know. I don't have a good set thing. You know, there's not a lot of Merc Jacks. I've painted a lot of the Nomads and those types of chassis, like the Mule and stuff. But these Rulik Jacks, again, are a whole nother beast. And I mean, like, some of it looks very obvious. Like on his shoulder here, there's like a shoulder plate and a bolt. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll paint that. But yeah, another thing, one of the reasons I want to get this guy off my table is I actually have a new Rulik thing that I just bought the other day that I want to get to, because whereas this driller might not see the light of day for a while unless I'm trying something janky, this other thing is actually pretty amazing. What that is the, I can't remember what it's called, like the whatever hold artillery, it's the dwarf weapon team, right? The big mortar thing. And, you know, back in Mark II, all these little weapons teams were garbage, and, you know, now I'm still of the thought that whenever I see a weapon team, I'm like, yeah, it must be trash. Although the Kador ones have been doing very well lately. This thing is actually extremely good, especially with someone like Osram. Now, if you look at it, originally, it looks kind of like meh, because it's a range 16, AoE 4, POW 14. So it's like, okay, I guess I can shoot that at some infantry. If they're low armor, I can try and, you know, break through that and what have you. If I shoot at a heavy, I guess I might chip away a little bit of damage. If I even hit, you know, I guess I'm aiming up to Rat 7, so it's not the worst. But yeah, it's not really a boostable gun. So when I'm looking at the same points, and I could either have another gun bunny or a weapons team, well, I'm going to pick the gun bunny. Well, there's a few more rules on the card that make it a little bit more important, and also rules on Osram that make it a little bit more potent. And what those are is for, what's he, I think it's just brutal damage. I was wondering if it had like a different name for being like an artillery thing. But yeah, if it directly hits, so it's not going to be everything under the template, just the one target. If you directly hit, you get an additional dive damage. So again, one of the problems with these weapon teams is the idea that they can't boost. But, I mean, as long as you're trying to shoot a heavy or something like that, all of a sudden now it's a boosted POW 14, and all of a sudden now that's doing more damage than a gun bunny. So, I mean, that's already making you say, like, whoa, that's something to really consider. Now, Osram has another spell, which I am totally blanking on right now for its name, Fire for Effect, there you go. And what it does is for your first attack, boosts your to hit and your damage. Now, all of a sudden that means that, first of all, you have a better chance of hitting, so that idea of getting a additional dice for the direct hit is far more probable. As well, on top of that, that means that when I hit a heavy, it's a POW 14 with 4 dice of damage. And that's pretty significant. You know, all of a sudden that means that my average I'm rolling is 14, so I'm basically rolling a 28. So even if I hit like a hard jack that's like armor 20, I'm still doing 8 boxes of damage, which is pretty damn good, right? If I'm shooting it with a gun bunny, I'm going to maybe plink away like a couple points or something like that. And all of a sudden this is like, boom, I'm doing some real damage. A couple of hits from something like that can start taking out systems. And if that wasn't enough, infantry have to be very careful, because even if I don't hit, all that blast damage is boosted as well. So yeah, it does extremely well. So, you know, and it's one of those things too, that one of the reasons I'm starting to look into these guys is the theme. You know, I really should have, for all the reasons I've been stating so far, already been looking at this, but it was the theme, the Rulik one, the Hammerfall or whatever it's called, that lets you get some free models that I was looking at it to get in the Ogre and Bokur, and when I realized that, well, this thing's 6 points, I could be getting basically one more free point, you know, I'm a stickler like that, I'm going to try and get every free point I can, I started looking into it more, and that's where I kind of started again realizing how good these things are. And unfortunately, when I went in, there was only one, although really I feel like I'm going to want 2. And I mean, Osram's going to be at the back there, just swapping Fire for Effect between them, and they can do some real good damage. Now, they're not, of course, having the full grids like the bunnies do, so I mean, they're not impossible to take out if you can start getting some shots on them. However, they can do arcing fire, so you can hide them behind your bunnies to keep them safe. And then as well, on top of that, if you are now taking the new Siege Crawler, if you do get shot a bit and lose a couple of guys, well, if you really need to, you can just heal them right back and add them back into the game. So that is fairly significant. You know, it's hard to stress just how important that is. So yeah, I'm looking at this and looking at some lists, and you know, it's once again where it's much different from the way I've been playing. So far, I've been mainly playing with all the gun bunnies and pew pew pew, and if you ever get close, there's an Earthbreaker that's waiting to punch you in the face. But you know, the version that you probably want to run with the theme, you need to have infantry. So I mean, that's going to be your hammer dwarves. You know, let's not be crazy here. Nobody's going to be using high shields. Okay, I'm sure there's people out there who do use them. In fact, there's somebody in my gaming group who does use them, but they never really do well. I kind of wait and wonder what their CID is going to look like. Because people are talking about how, oh man, look at those long gunners, they're so bad. Even when they get it fixed, they're still so bad. Have you guys seen high shields? They're basically the same thing but slower, and with the worst range. And sure, you can go and shield wall with them, but that's not going to save them, guys. It really doesn't. Maybe the odd thing, it will save you, and you'll be like, hooray, armor. But for the most part, when they get shot by stuff, they're still dying just like anything else. So, yeah, there's my little rant on that stuff. I don't know where that even came from, but that's how these Paintisodes go. I just start talking about something and I just keep on rambling on. Something else I've been having a lot of trouble doing is actually just going to events. Here in Alberta, we have the Alberta War Machine Invitational, and so I definitely want to get in here and get points so I can make the Invitational at the end of the year. And so far, I have 0 points. Every single time something comes up, I just can't make it because I'm busy with a birthday party, or like yesterday, I want to spend some time with the kids before they left. And yeah, it just seems to be the way it goes. Or the ones I do make, it's because I'm running, and then I can't play in those. And one of the things that's going to be kind of unfortunate is that since I lost to Scorn, I put it out there that if both Will Pagani and Will Hungerford liked the post to kind of like approve it, I was going to take Scorn to my next tournament. Now, Pagani went and liked it right away, so that one wasn't hard to get his approval. But when Hungerford came on, he actually changed the game on me and said, actually, I want you to play minions. So there you go. I got to try and figure out some minions for my next tournament I'm going to, which might actually be difficult. You know, I was thinking about it before. I know a lot of people who play minions and would very much be up for sharing their army with me so I could play them in an event. But with minions about to get so much more new stuff that they announced here in Lock and Load, things like the Dracodile and things like that, yeah, I think these minion players are going to be coming back, and we're going to be starting to see a lot more minion players, even though the stuff isn't out yet, starting to play more just so that they can be in practice for when stuff is out and ready. So, you know, if you thought you were safe from Rask because it disappeared from your meta for a while, you might want to prepare to start seeing it come back again. But yeah, and you know, like, I wouldn't even bother making the list for the minions. I would basically just run whatever their lists were. I'd be like, yeah, come here, thank you for letting me borrow your lists, and instead of me trying to, like, twist your arm and having to put together the list that I want, you know, just make whatever list you'd like, and whether that means the list that you feel are best or the list that you feel are worst and you want me to suffer, whatever. But what I'm getting to is I'm probably not going to do well in that tournament. So it's going to be another one of those years where I'm going to be really struggling and being completely off the radar for AWI, and then at the end of the year being in a mad rush to try and snag a final spot. In fact, one of the things that we're currently looking into is possibly going to Lethbridge. A lot of the communities here have been kind of suffering lately, which is kind of too bad, but one that's starting to really pop up and being a lot bigger is here in Alberta, the town or city of Lethbridge. And so they're actually running a tournament there this next weekend, and what that actually means is that if we want to go, that's going to be like a good 4.5 hour drive, so it's pretty significant. But hey, you know, they look like they might get at least 16 players. That's what you need here for it to be scoring for AWI. And so, especially if they were close before, and then a bunch of us from Edmonton can get a van together and head down there, that should be no problem. Hit that 16, hopefully do well, get some points, and yeah. Maybe one of the things that'd be interesting to hear what you guys think of is we actually changed the structure of the way that you get points. So let me take a drink first. Previously, the way you got points is that, let's say there's 50 people in a tournament. You would take the top half, so starting from 25th, And then 25th place would get 1 point, 24th would get 2, 23rd would get 3, and so on and so on and so on until you get to the top ones, and then the top ones got a bonus, I think it was 10 or 5 points each as well, just to give a bonus to the top, and then pretty much you take a sum from all the points you get over the year, and then boom, the highest ones make it in. The problem that we found was that you could basically pay to get in. So like I said, we're in years where I had no points, I would go in there and I just start going to every tournament I can to rack up points and then get in the top 16 to make the invitational. And, you know, as much as it's a system that does stuff, it's maybe not the best one. And so what we're moving to is one where your score is going to be your ratio of wins. So if you won 4 out of the 4 games, you get 1, because 4 divided by 4 equals 1. If you won 2 of the games, well, 2 divided by 4 is 0.5. And what you do is take the top 4 scores during the year and use that average. If there's a tie, then you start going to total points. If there's another tie, you look at the points just for your particular city. So it's a real difference in the way that we're doing these things, but I think it's going to really improve stuff. We also threw in there a what's it called? It's just a random draft, basically. So after you determine basically the top 14, because one winner comes from the winner from last year, yeah, you just take anyone who had any points whatsoever. So maybe somebody just gets like a 0.25 from winning 1 game out of 4 in one scoring event, and if they're that random number, hey, they're going to be in. And it's one of these things we did to kind of give everyone a shot, because maybe you're that guy that can only, or girl, that can only make one event. And so you should still have a chance, even if it's a remote one, to try and get in. So it'll be interesting to see who wins that as well. For an update for painting, you know, we just keep on painting silver things. You know, that's going to be really it. I'm just going to keep on, whenever I see something that should be a little bit heavier metal or stands out, I'm just going to paint them silver, and then we'll have to do, of course, some touch-ups at the end. And I think that might be just how this guy ends. You know, it's nothing super fancy, although I wouldn't say any of the stuff I ever do is super fancy, but it's something. We've been doing a lot more movies. For those who don't watch, I'm also part of the Idiots of the Round Table, and that's actually going really well. I'm having a lot of fun with it, seeing a lot of good movies, a lot of bad movies. I don't want to really spoil anyone's right now, so that there's anyone who wants to either watch them on there or doesn't want to hear any spoilers before they see it. But, you know, it's just been something that's been really fun, and, you know, I share it here on the channel, even though it's not War Machine related. You know, I almost feel like that is the replacement for Paintisodes. If you're a person who just wants that noise in the background while you're doing whatever, hey, why not just listen to me talk about movies? So I don't know if there's anyone out there that actually does that. It'd be interesting to know how much crossover there is between the people who watch my stuff for War Machine and the people who watch my stuff for movies. Maybe there's no overlap whatsoever. Maybe right now everyone who's listening is like, okay, shut up and get back to something War Machine. But, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of interested. So if you do, I mean, please post it down below just so I kind of know. Now, of course, Lock and Load happened this weekend here, and well, I guess it's still kind of still going. We're at Sunday right now when I'm doing this. But yeah, crazy, loving to see that there's such a big show out, or turnout rather, for it. You know, lots of interesting armies coming out, and then yeah, people talking about some of the things like how by the end of the year there's going to be a theme for every single faction, not for every single faction, every single model, and that is just so good to hear. I'm so happy to hear this stuff. You know, some of the things that Privateer Press has been doing lately has really had me shaking my head, but it really seems now like they've really turned things around and listened to the arguments, and now are really changing things for the better. So I just can't wait. You know, I was kind of worried for a while because a lot of people were leaving War Machine in this area, or at least were taking a break, right? There's a lot of people that are just admitting, like, you know what, right now I'm just going to kind of leave it for a bit, and I'm going to come back later when we kind of see where things settle out. But I really feel now that they are taking the right steps to bring it back to a stable, good, solid game that everyone's going to have fun with no matter what faction they play. So really happy to see that. I guess one of the things I could talk about is what big events I do have coming up. I mean, I do have the Lethbridge one that I talked about. As far as what I'm going to be taking to that, I don't know. I still feel like there's so much threats out there for Thexus that I don't know if I want to be taking him. And if I'm not taking Thexus, I'm almost of a mind where it's almost not worth taking mercenaries. You know, he's just such a key and powerful list that I know there's other things I could be running, like Damiano, or, you know, Rulik or anything like that. But man, I just love that Thexus list so much that the idea of like, well, we might have to not play it kind of also then means for me like, well, maybe I just don't do mercenaries. And I mean, that's a big reason why I've just been playing so much Signar lately. Plus, I mean, Signar, they just have so many cool toys, right? They have all the cool casters with all the cool feats, so many options. I mean, that's really, for all these new factions that they're going to be announcing for, you know, Privateer Press and War Machine, all the new stuff that will be like the 1 year release, like Convergence and stuff like that, or whatever that new one is that they announce here at Lock and Load. You know, it's so hard for them to try and compete, both being competitive and then also for people's attention, because those limited options are just so killer. You know, when I'm coming here from the Signar side of the tracks, and I just have so many options, and I'm facing somebody that has, by default, fewer options, I mean, how can I help but feel like the privileged one and just having a massive advantage? These clamps are weird. I'm not really sure what to make silver or not. I know there must be so many people out there that are kind of like mocking me right now. Here I am just like basically doing one color, whereas everybody else, or a lot of like the good painters, will be like, ooh, I'm going to use this shade here and this shade here, and I was like, nah, I don't care. I think this is actually working out okay though. Maybe that's my goal, is just to make it okay. I think that's usually my goal anyway. But in a couple of months here, it is going to be Attack X. Currently, I am not signed up for it, and that's mainly just because my wife is going back to school, which, I mean, in that period there, it's going to make it really tough around September. So it'd be really good if I didn't go. I really regret not going. And if you're anyone in Canada, you know, you should have Attack X on your radar. If you're anyone in the States who are on the West Coast, you should really have Attack X on your radar. It is an amazing time. And if you're talking Canada, this is one of the biggest things we're talking about here. I mean, you got your South Ontario Open that you can talk about there on the East Coast. But if you're on the West Coast, it's probably Attack X is what you should be looking at here. Now, is this enough for the claw? If I do this down here, I'm not sure if it's going to make too much silver. So yeah, really feel crummy that I won't be able to go to Attack X probably. You know, there's still a chance that maybe if my wife goes to school and it's like, hey, yeah, this is actually working out okay, then maybe I can like squeak it in and sneak away at the last second. But honestly, I don't see that happening. You know, she's going to have so much homework now to do every single night, and I'm going to be more leaned on to be dealing with, you know, house chores and baby, you know, all that type of stuff. So, you know, it's just one of those things where I might have to just not go this year, which is unfortunate. Meanwhile, I'm still working away at the plans for my own big tournament, Blood and Gears. That's the Masters event that I run here, and you compete for a sword. You know, you don't see that anywhere else. I've never seen... Okay, that's a lie. I have never seen another event where you compete for a real sword. I've seen events where you compete for, like, a wooden sword, which was, you know, not bad. But I believe, at least, that Blood and Gears is the only one where the trophy at the end of the day is an actual engraved sword. And I think that's pretty cool. You know, it's kind of nice to have that kind of honor. And of course, I'm probably going to get some comments saying, oh, actually, this tournament here in Wisconsin or wherever does it too. But who cares? Somebody brought up the suggestion actually last year that I should change things up. So if there's a repeat winner, you can start building like a full set of armor or something. But I mean, no, I'm not going to do that. You don't want to be like the guy where one year, hooray, I win, and you just get like an arm piece, right, of the armor, or is like whatever, some minor piece that would be part of a build-up. That just doesn't make any sense. You want to have something substantial. And how big was that? I mean, that was a good... I'm not sure. I don't think it was quite 4 feet, but it was like 3.5 feet long. It was a pretty cool sword. And again, one of the things that sucks for me is here's another tournament that I can't do well in and get points from and try and win the trophy because I'm running it. So, just part of the sacrifices us TOs make. You know, if you get a nice TO in your area, do me a favor, and next time you see him or her, just give him a nice big hug and be like, you know what? I appreciate what you do. We actually I ran a couple of tournaments this last weekend. Oh, I should totally talk about those. Buddy of mine was coming in from China, and him and some of his friends who are teachers there teaching the Alberta curriculum wanted to get some games in and kind of see what this Alberta meta is all about. And so it was a 2-day thing. The day one, I ran it from my usual venue, and it was just, you know, your standard Steamroller 2016 type affair. And then the second day, that was the fun one, because what we did is we pulled out some Steamroller 2010? I believe it was Steamroller 2010, or it was 2012. It's the one where there's like, you can move objectives, and you were like going at each other from corners, and there's like 8-inch circles and all this stuff. It was great. Just things like people are reading this going like, what's going on? And stuff where like, if you want to score for this one sacrifice, you have to control this zone, but you can only score on it if you're also having a model in base to base with a flag over here. And if you ever do score point, those models take a POW 20 magical damage roll and then are pushed 3 inches away. It was something different, and it was lots of fun. You know, the idea that we stressed was that, okay, this is the fun one. For this, I mean, if you want to be serious, make sure you bring that stuff to the tournament on Saturday, but for this one on Sunday, be goofy. And I mean, it was also 50 points as well, so you saw some different stuff that you don't normally see, but it didn't really stop some people from taking some pretty nasty lists. You know, given that it's a fun 50-point event, we still saw a lot of colossals and gargantuans. One of the guys that I think was the most egregious was running a Balder 2 with 2 World Wraths. I can't believe that actually fitted in 50 points. So, whatever. What can you do? But yeah, they definitely got to see what us Alberta meta is all about. You know, there was some trash talking that I was hearing before that, you know, they're going to come here and they're going to kick our butts and give us a real run for our money. But I think they realized that we got a pretty strong meta here in, no, I mean, I could say all of Canada, but I mean, Alberta, we got a pretty serious group of people over here. I mean, I'm sure everyone says that, but I mean, when we look at things like how we went and stole the, what is it called again? It's that cup that they're running that if you won it, it would go to your region. And so, Mayhem Cup, there you go. And so it was kind of going around the States for a while, and then some of us Alberta people just went up there and won it and brought it back up here. And the problem that we had is that once we brought the Mayhem Cup up here, no one from the States was willing to come up here and get it. So we just kind of kept it for a while, and then after we realized that we basically just killed the system, we then just brought it back to one of the more major events in the States. You know, basically at that point they're giving it back, and there you go. And it's really too bad. You know, there's a lot of Canadians, like say right now for Lock and Load, and we go down there and we pay lots of money to go to the States because, you know, your dollar is stronger than our Canadian dollar right now. But it seems like whenever there's events up here, you almost never see people from the States coming. Maybe it's a little bit different over there for, say, the South Ontario Open, but man, I would think that for some of the larger ones over here, like Attack X, we get some, but not very many. For GrotzCon, often we don't have any, and it's just like, oh, come on, you know, like, for you guys there, it's so much cheaper and easier for you guys to come up here. Plus, we're so friendly. You know, you'd probably save on hotel rooms because you just be like, hey, can I bunk with someone? And be like, yeah, sure. Here's your beer. Oh, I mucked up. I'm going to have to go and fix this up. How am I doing for time? We are at, wow, we are way ahead of schedule. Maybe it's just because I'm such a bad painter, but for the things on here that are kind of like the details that felt like they needed to be painted, they're almost kind of all done already. Like I was saying, these Rouleau jacks are pretty simple and not really overly fancy, and so I've kind of gone through everything now, and everything that I looked like it should be something like a separate detail piece, I went and you know, made a different color at least, but I'm pretty much already done. I guess it's always like that with jacks though, right? It seems like whenever I do infantry, even just this one model, that will take the full hour or sometimes some extra time after. But jacks, you know, especially when you start getting used to them and you lower your quality bar as low as I do, they go fairly fast. Alright, so I'm just going to do some touch-ups here now, because I'm a sloppy painter who gets stuff everywhere. But yeah, I mean, for those who didn't hear from other stuff, I am planning to do tons of videos all through this week. So I have a backlog of battle reports, so I got to kind of go through those. Some of them are from that fun event, so you'll get to see what some of those games were like. But of course, then there will be more battle reports. I'll be doing more or tactical teams. I'm hoping to do at least one, maybe two more Paintisodes during this time. So yeah, there is going to be a lot of material going out, and it's about time because I've taken a real back seat for a while. It's been actually nice. I mean, I can't lie. Where before, when the kids would go to bed, I'd try and sneak down here and do a video as fast as I can so that the wife's not too angry with me type thing. And now, or well, before when they were here, the kids, it's like, oh, you know, the kids want to play Minecraft with me. Okay, well, I guess I'll do that. And, you know, what can I say? I enjoy spending time with my kids, so, you know, it didn't really bother me that I wasn't getting to do as many videos. One thing that's insane is my wife has also her own YouTube channel, and she hasn't posted anything in there, I think since February, she was saying, and yet for some reason, between then and now, she's gained something like 300 subscribers. And it's like, what? So you do nothing and you just gain a bajillion subscribers? Does not seem very fair, but I don't care. I have enough people that are crazy enough to want to hear me yap about War Machines, so that makes me happy. And if you want to see what this guy is looking like, I mean, honestly, I mean, I still have to do the wash on him, so, I mean, there's still that to add on, but, I mean, there's just not a lot of detail on this guy, right? I mean, I'm sure there's other people that up on here would do different symbols, like fire or numbers or something like that, and maybe do different shades, and, you know, you could be doing battle damage and stuff like that, but that's not how I paint things. And really, for the way that I do paint things, this is pretty much it. I think I might do more around this little bolt that's on the clamp. These are actually a pretty handy jack to have. They're fairly cheap. They're only 10 points. They have sustained attack, so once you hit once, they're doing some, you know, respectable damage. And I believe too that they're POW 18, I think, if I remember right. It's been a while, but then again, if you're running some of these guys, you can take a caster like Gorton, so you can go and raise their POW by 4 if you want. Yeah, they'll break through armor no problem. And one of the things I like I was saying before, when I think about taking a driller, I think about taking like 5 to 6 of them, and that's because in the theme they get reposition 3 plus an extra 2 inches of deployment. So these guys actually get kind of funny where, you know, normally you could just run up your 8, but now you could trample up 7 and then reposition up another 3, so you're 12. And then of course there's all the stuff where you're like coming in and attack, and, you know, repo away and all this stuff. And it just seems like there'd be a lot of like janky fun you could do. And of course, I mean, with being 10 points, you can get like 10 of these guys in a list, and just all these things like repositioning around would be really cool. Not quite as cool as Cray, where it's a repo 5, but you know, still interesting enough. And I mean, they're just so cheap. And I mean, you could always throw in some other stuff too, like the Basher or something like that, to get some fun slams going on. And the main thing at the end of the day, like I was saying, like these guys can still put out the hurt and take some things out. Now, oh, I don't have any wash. So here is my mixing pot of wash, and unless I start using my water, my murky paint water, to try and mix this, I don't think that'll be a good idea. So I might want to just do this later. I'm going to put this beside it to remind me. But yeah, I guess we're going to be finishing this one early. I don't know if I'm going to be using this driller anytime soon. Maybe I'll just have to force myself to do it. Another one that's on my table here that I really want to try is, I can't remember his name, Brickhouse. Shithouse, right? This guy. You know, I've had him on my table here, and I started him, right? I got the first color on, started doing the red, and then just kind of stopped. And I don't know why. I think in the end he'll be a fairly fast and easy thing to paint, but it's just really, whenever I start making lists, trying to make something that has him. I mean, there's a lot of good uses you can use for him. I mean, even if you can never use his janky kind of like tractor field thing, the very fact that he has Carapace, so +4 armor against the range attacks as you're coming in, is awesome. So really good. I don't know, it just seems that whenever I do that, I assume that I have to play it with Beth Maddox, and as soon as I start doing Beth Maddox, I'm just not really intrigued with it. You know, Beth basically does the same thing all the time that says, hey, let's go forward, I'm going to ignore all terrain, okay, now everything charge and hit really hard. And it's almost one of those casters, almost like Striker 1, where it's just kind of like a really boring one, and her spells aren't even as interesting as Kane 1, right? Where he's like moving around Blur and Snipe and Arcane Shield, and they're doing very different things. She's really just sitting there saying, okay, you hit hard, and Pathfinder. And she just stands there with her sword, and she just tries to stand by her Stormclad so that they get an extra focus. And it's just, you know, it's at least other casters have interesting spells, or they're trying to do more work. And, you know, Beth Maddox could go in and do work herself, but you don't really want to do that. She's not really a combat caster. I mean, you can charge in a pinch if you need it, but you really shouldn't. So I think that's really the problem. You know, it's just, it's not so much the fact that she's bad. You know, she offers some really good things. She's just not interesting, right? Whereas opposed to, you look at Cray and it's like, I can reposition her all around here, or one of the Haleys and have these really cool interesting spells, or, you know, I'm Kane and I'm doing active things all the time, or, you know, I'm what's his name, Darius, and I'm craning things around, or Jake's too, and then you're really getting crazy, you sprint. And yeah, you just don't have any of that. I'm sure if Beth Maddox was in Mercs, I'd be playing her because, okay, sure, you know, you kind of do your thing, but it's just, maybe we're just spoiled there in Signar Land where we got all these fun casters. I mean, man, just look at Haley 3. Haley 3 has so many options. She's always so interesting to play, and then it's so hard to leave Haley 3 and then be looking at someone like, you know, Beth Maddox and be like, oh, Something that happened at the last gaming day here is I had my new Haley 3 list all ready to go that has, what was it, 7 Lancers I think it is. You know, I got Thorn and then just a bunch of Lancers and then more Lancers on Jake's and more Lancers on a Junior, and the whole premise behind the list, oh, and also an Avenger, and the whole premise of the list is that it shuts down War Machine lists because I do my little temporal dance, so everyone gets +2 defense. So between that and set defense, they're pretty damn hard to hit. And you know, I always got strange ways to fix something if something is damaged. But then once I get in there, you know, they just start stabbing away, you know, because they're basically, you know, +2 mats the way it works out, so they can just kind of stab and kill infantry. But the best thing is the jacks, and I just love that, where, you know, sure, Thorn can go around and he can disrupt his own things, but the little tiny Lancer is saying, every time you hit me, you're going to lose a Cortex, and then every time I bash you with this shield, I don't need to do damage, I just need to hit you and I destroy another Cortex. And the idea that I can have like 2 Lancers, because you can't disrupt a Colossal, but 2 Lancers can go up to a Colossal and just go ding, 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 take out its Cortex, and it's like useless. And the cool thing is too, is that once your Cortex is out, the Avenger is having a field day, because when he hits, he makes you stationary, and because you don't have a Cortex, you don't have the focus to shake the stationary, and he's just having all the funs all day. So I finally got the chance to play this list because I put it all together, and wouldn't you know it, all I face is hordes. I really missed the boat with this. You know, for most of Mark III, it's been War Machine, War Machine, War Machine, with hardly any hordes to be seen. And now there's been a real resurgence of it, and we're seeing tons of Legion all over the place, mainly because their new theme lists are pretty damn good. You know, I'm sure once the CID comes out, you're going to be seeing a lot more Trolls going around. Scorn, their new theme is going around, and, you know, with those people who did so well with them with ETC, you know, I think people will be coming back, and you'll be seeing more Scorn. I don't know about Circle. I mean, we obviously have our current Circle player, but they seem like they need a little bit more love. And so I'm sure, you know, whenever they release those themes, you can play anything in theme. It's going to mean that you're going to basically see everything again, because everybody's going to want to try out something now and try out all these new themes. So it's going to be a very exciting time. So anyway, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter Paintisode. I said I usually try and go for an hour, but hey, you know, we're getting pretty close here to 50 minutes, so that's not so bad. So anyway, I always love hearing what you guys were painting or working on while you were watching this. So please just post it down below. If you have any comments on any things that I was talking about, put it down there as well, and I'll make sure to respond back. And otherwise, yeah, I'll be posting lots of stuff every day. Hope you like it, and we'll catch you then. Bye.